Spartas received his primary and secondary education in institution of the Anglican Church. He broke with his church and organized a church for Africans, only in which European missionaries had influence. The idea to organize such a church came to him because of the magazine of the Marcus Garvey movement in the United States, which told the story of the independent African Orthodox Church in the USA. Through correspondence, he learned that a branch of this church had been started in South Africa. Sparta and his friends invited the Archbishop of this church, whose name was Daniel William Alexander, to come over to Uganda and help. So this fella by the name Sparta met with a guy in Kenya whose name was George Gaduna. And that's how the Orthodox Church spread now in Kenya. In 1930, a spontaneous movement of indigenous in Africa toward the Orthodox Church began in Uganda under the leadership of Anglican Reuben Sparta. In 1946, the Father Sparta and Obadiah visiting Kenya on their autonomous motivations. The African Orthodox Church of Kenya came into communion with the Patriarchate of Alexandria, and the head of this church was George Gaduna, who was ordained the first Kenya Orthodox priest in 1937, and he had ordained into bishop as a bishop in 1946. So it's good to know about this first bishop in Kenya. In 1950, he fought along with many Orthodox priests in the movement for independence from colonial Kenya. At the same time, the Protestant and Catholic priests called the uprising and the rebellions of pagans and savage. Gaduna spent 10 years in prison along with the leader of the Kikuyu tribe and country's future president, Jomo Kenyatta. The Orthodox communities in East Africa that had been founded under his leadership were organized into the metropolis of Illinois with headquarters in Nairobi in 1958. He was first bishop of Kenya and first Kenya missionary to people of Bunyore. In 1972, he was elected tutorial bishop of Nitria, that is assistant bishop of metropolis of Illinois, and he was consecrated on 25th February 1973 at St. Paul Kagila, which is in Kenya. In 1974, Bishop George Gaduna hence split into the Orthodox Church into Africa and Greek Orthodox. On November 1979, Bishop George Gaduna was defrocked, caused by what he called a problem of leadership and authority. However, the Patriarchate accused him of lack of vision. Following his defrocation, Bishop Gaduna joined a schismatic group under a bishop in Greece that followed the old calendar. Several other Orthodox Christians in Kenya followed him. 17 November 1986, he was reconsecrated as the bishop of the African Orthodox Church of Kenya, given the name Nifon Kegudo. On July 16, 1987, the defrocked Bishop Gaduna reposed, and his burial was attended by Metropolitan Cyprians from the Old Calendar Orthodox Church of Greece. Bishop Gaduna of Nitria was reinstated by Patriarch Theodorus II and at the Holy Synod of the Patriarchate of Alexandria. So that is how that first bishop of Orthodox Church in Kenya, lived. But after him came other bishops, and that is George Gadhuna was the first, and his era was 1973 to 1979. From there, we had another bishop, Irenaeus, 1994 to 1996. From there, we had Petros, 1996 to 1997. From there, we had Seraphim, 1997 to 2001. And now, there's a bishop who is currently there, who is my bishop, Archbishop Macarius, who started 2001 up to date. And I would want to share with you maybe how the bishop came to Kenya, that is Macarius. He was born in Cyprus in 1995, and he studied his theology in France, Paris, and he found himself in Kenya because, as you know, the history of Cyprus, there was a president there by the name Macarius, who was a bishop as well as a president. And by then, there was we had our first president in Kenya was Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. So he visited Kenya, and he met our president, and because of a good relationship that they had together, the first president of Kenya, that is Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, donated a piece of land in Nairobi, our capital city, to the Orthodox Church, to that bishop. And when that bishop left, this current bishop that we have in Kenya had that president as his spiritual father. So he's the one who sent our current bishop in Kenya to Kenya now, to come and start a seminary school. By then, he was very young, and he was by the name Tridides. And that is in 1970s. So when he came there, he put the things together, and he established now what you have heard, where I started, Macarius III Seminary. That's why it is named after that first president who was given that land by our president, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. And that's where we started now. And the bishop now started teaching there as a professor because he was learned. And in 1992, Bishop Macarius was ordained now to diaconate and to priesthood. And he was also consecrated as a bishop. And it happened that when this bishop, because they were there as I have named them, he happened to go to Zimbabwe for 4 years, and in 1998. And then he came back in 2001. And he has been in Kenya now for all that period. More than 35 years, we have been privileged to have Bishop Macarius in Kenya. And in the year 2015, like 4 years ago, it happened that the synod sat down, and they opted to at least consecrate two other bishops in Kenya, and that is Bishop Neophytos Kongai and Bishop Athanasius Akuda, who is late. May his soul rest in eternal peace. And also Kenya was demarcated, or was divided into 3 dioceses. That is Nairobi and Central Kenya, and Bishop Macarius now is the responsible bishop. And Nyeri and Mauti, Kenya, and Bishop Neophytos is the current bishop in that diocese. And Bishop Athanasius Akuda, who died was responsible of Kisumu and Western Kenya. And when he died, the diocese was like, there is no bishop who is responsible. And Macarius, my bishop, was told to be responsible. So he has been responsible for that long. And last month, the diocese, the synod sat down again, and they decided to at least have another bishop to replace the Nasius Akuda, and that is Marcos, who has not come yet, but will be coming to Kenya to be in charge of the diocese of Kisumu and Western Kenya. And also they gave us another diocese, that is of Eldoret and North Kenya. So as we speak, we have got now 4 dioceses in Kenya, and Bishop Macarius is in charge of 2 dioceses, that of Nairobi and Central Kenya, and Eldoret and Northern Kenya. So generally that is how Kenya is as we speak. And we have been able to have 1.5 Orthodox Christians in the entire Kenya. And Kenya has got a population of like 45 million people. And I would say that the Orthodox Church, we are the minority because we did not spread as other denominations. The Roman Catholic, we would say it leads, and Protestants, they are following, but at least we are somewhere. And from that seminary school, we have got from that seminary school, we have got like 400 priests who have graduated from there, and we have got like 300 to 500 parishes in Kenya. So myself, I am in charge of a mission center and an orphanage situated in Jambini, somewhere known as Jambini, in a certain county by the name Nyandarua. And I take care of like 200 vulnerable kids who stay with me there, where we provide food, health care, shelter, and clothes. And that is the only way actually to spread the Orthodox faith, because as I have said, the faith is not that known. And to tell people that we have got faith by the name Orthodox, they don't understand. They know a certain game that we call Orthodox, when you hit a ball and it turns loud. So it's not easy. You mention Orthodox, they see a game instead of a faith. So you must bring them together, give them food, and in the process, you catechize them, and eventually you baptize them. As we speak, those 200 kids that I take care of, 105 are baptized Orthodox Christians. And I hope that when they grow up, they will be adults, they will understand what Orthodox is, and they help me to spread that faith to other people in that area. So generally, that is how the Orthodox Church is in Kenya. Thank you so much. So if there is a question, I would, yes.
How many Orthodox Christians did you say there are in Kenya?
1.5 million.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Any other question? Okay, if there isn't, thank you so much for listening, and God bless you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Constantinos.
Mm-hmm.
No, stand up, my dear.
That's all.
All right, so listen up. We are going to do
It's okay.
some music. And I see,
Okay.
we're going to start with Wade in the Water. My assistant is upstairs. Her mother sent her upstairs.